everybody. Today I'm going to be talking to you about employment trends and job searching. Hopefully some of you can come along to the subsequent workshops on resume writing, etc., and skill assessment. And those things will help you basically when it comes to your current situation. This presentation is designed to help anyone who's seeking employment at the moment, even if you're just curious about what your options are. I don't need to really do any housekeeping. It's a webinar, so as Josephine said, there will definitely be time for questions at the end. You are welcome to take notes. However, there is a fact sheet that accompanies this presentation, which I'll talk about at the end. I guess when it comes to taking notes, if there's any particular questions or queries you have about the information that I present, feel free to ask me about those at the end. So who am I? Well, I manage the Skills and Jobs Centre at Victoria University Polytechnic. And just to be clear, the Skills and Jobs Centres are a government funded initiative and they exist at every TAFE in Victoria. So there's 16 Skills and Jobs Centres with a range of different pop-up services around the state. Now, I work at the Skills and Jobs Centre that's based at Victoria University Polytechnic, but as I said, we're government funded, so it's a free service to everyone in the community, not just students or prospective students of VU Polytechnic, but in fact anyone who needs some assistance with their career pathway. So we assist all kinds of people, particularly those cohorts identified by the government as people needing help at the moment, obviously retrenched workers, people who are unemployed, and a range of different cultural and other demographics. I'm highlighting this point to you because we are an impartial service, so nothing I suggest to you has a specific relevance to Vic Uni Polytechnic. It's more about the service that's best for you. So if you came to see us for an individual career consultation or even reached out to us for help with your resume or job application, we're open to talking about any possible training or other referrals that might be required, whether it's at your local community centre, something done through the council, another RTO, or even a TAFE. So just to be clear, we are career advisors. So we individually counsel people on their career options. Mostly what we talk to people about is obviously training and upskilling. So that might mean that you need some short training to get qualified for a particular job, or you may need to look at a larger, longer course and take advantage of some of the options available to you. So we're experts in knowing which courses are available to you and what you're eligible for, and to help you select the right course for you. With free TAFE and the new job trainer program, there's a lot of very cheap or free training available at the moment. Obviously, another large part of what we do is resume and job interview preparation. So for those of you who attend the resume writing session, you'll see we have a lot of advice about that. But we also look at people's resumes and give them advice based on what we've seen as to how they might fix or tailor their resume to suit the job they're going for. And then, of course, we sit down with individuals at the moment on Zoom, of course, to help them search for a job and provide them with assistance about where and how to look for work. And that's something I'll be talking about today. And obviously, if there's something else you need to be job ready, language courses, short training course, first aid certificate, those sorts of things, or even welfare or legal advice, we can refer you to the best place for that to happen. Okay, so today I'm talking about employment pathways. So I'm going to start about talking to you around the things that you're going to need if you want to apply for a job. And that's based on the questions that we're asked by people all the time. Some people are really aware of this because they've been searching for work for a long time or they've had a long career. But for some people, you might be just starting out, you might be new to the country, and you may not know exactly what you need. So this checklist can help you out. If you look on the left-hand side, it lists the things that you're going to need to gather together or create in order to search for work. So, for example, for job applications, it says up-to-date resume, and you need to think about whether you have this. So on the right-hand side, would you tick the I have this box, or would you be ticking I need this? If you need this, then I suggest you contact us and we can help you develop any of these things. So an up-to-date resume is something that you're going to need to apply for a job. You're also going to need a cover letter, and a cover letter could just be a simple statement about what you want and what you're after, but it can also be more comprehensive depending on the job you're going for. That's something we can also help you develop. And you're going to need the details of 2 or 3 referees. So ideally people you've worked with before, or if you haven't had a job, maybe you could think about people who you've done particular tasks with, perhaps at a sporting club or through study, or at school if you're still, if you're sort of entry level employment and still young, or maybe someone you've done some volunteer work with. That needs to be people that can talk to what kind of worker you're going to be, not just whether or not you're a good person and reliable, that's important, but really we want people on your list of referees or references that are going to be able to talk about the skills and the qualities that you have that would make you a great worker for the particular job you're going for. Then some other things that you might need to think about and gather together are a list of your skills. I'll go into that in a moment. There's also going to be a workshop in a couple of days' time about assessing your skills. Any certificates of workplace training, any reference letters that might go together in one place as a sort of career portfolio that if you've got a job interview, you may take along with you or be able to present to your employer. And then finally, further education and training. So if you're looking for a job that requires specific training or education, perhaps you need to learn more about that. And those things listed there, courses to research, application forms, funding, financial assistance, those are the sorts of things that we can talk through with you individually, whether that's via Zoom or on the telephone, or when we get back face to face, we can sit down and work out which courses you need to look at. Once again, if you need any help with any of those things, the Skills and Jobs Centre is here to help you and everybody. We have some resources available on our website, and I'll provide you with the website address later on. Things like a resume template to help get you started thinking about your resume, or a cover letter template, things like that. If you want to go to our website, the address is listed here below. I'll also remind you at the end. And you can explore that website. We have a range of different resources available, the ones I've just showed you, as well as some short videos. There's a workshops page of other workshops we're conducting, a news page with some up-to-date information. There's even a jobs board where we advertise very generally some of the opportunities that we're aware of that you might be able to apply for, and a very regularly updated news page with any interesting information about current funding or opportunities that exist in the community. When you go to our website, if you wanted to then have an appointment with us, you could click on the Need Assistance button there on the side with the blue arrow on any page, fill in your details, and that would send us an email. We would then contact you to make a one-on-one appointment. All right, so let's get down to talking about where the jobs are. I'm going to go back a little bit and talk to you about what has been going on as a result of COVID. So last year in Australia, the employment statistics looked like this. Over 12.3 million people were employed, and 2/3 of those were employed full-time. Our unemployment rate was 5.1%, which is considered very good. And just a note that over 14% of those people employed were aged 15 to 24 years. So that probably accounts for a lot of the casual and part-time work that's not included in the first statistic. Today, things have changed. The unemployment rate has gone up. It's expected to rise a little more before levelling out at about 8%. And there are 960,900 1,100 people unemployed who are over the age of 15. Now, I'm not telling you this to discourage you, but more to highlight the fact that there are a lot of other people looking for work at the same time as you are. So this is why it's really important to know what's going on and what you need when applying for jobs so that you can be competitive. If you look at the last statistic, the total job active caseload, that's people who are accessing, Centrelink and job and employment services. So there's 1.5 million people, looking for work, whether that's that they're currently unemployed or they may be underemployed. Those are the people that you're competing against. So for every job that you're going for, there's on average about 13 other people going for that job as well. So we need to make you stand out. And that's what I'm talking to you about, giving you a few tips about the ways you might be able to stand out. Last year, the industries with the most workers were these ones here. Now, the titles of these industries come from government statistics and government surveys. So they're quite broad, but I'll just break them down a little bit. Healthcare and social assistance was the highest employer with 1.68 million people employed in that area. I'm going to point out a little bit later that healthcare and social assistance, it's not just being a doctor or a nurse, but it's anyone who's employed in that sector. So it might be in the office or in the maintenance area, but it's basically saying that that industry employed the most people. Retail trade employed 1.29 million. So you can imagine that a lot of those workers have now been displaced. They don't have jobs necessarily. It's starting to recover because restrictions have eased, but it's going to take a while for that trade to get back up to where it was. So a lot of those people are going to be looking for work in other sectors, just like you. Construction employed 1.18 million, and it's held pretty steady because construction has continued. And with a lot of the major projects in civil construction, so roadworks and building, you will have noticed a lot of it out on the road. There's still a lot of employment in that sector. Professional, scientific and technical services, it's a very, very broad term, but think working in an office, working in a science lab or working with computers and technology, that employed over 1 million people. And obviously technology is still an area that employs a lot of people. So while there's a lot of people who've lost their office type job, their admin sort of job, there's a lot of people who've also reskilled with technology and found work in technical services. Education and training was pretty steady at 1 million, and it continues to employ. A lot of people lost their jobs in the tertiary sector, so TAFE and uni teachers, etc. But school teachers and education support, early childhood, those things have continued. And lastly, accommodation and food services came in as one of the industries with the most workers, with 897,000 people. Again, an industry that's been pretty much decimated by COVID, but is recovering, and they're very actively seeking to employ and train new workers. So basically the impact of COVID-19 on employment has seen Australian jobs change. So yes, there's been job losses. Yes, there's been industries that have gone, but the industries that have remained are looking at new ways of working. So they're very interested in thinking about the new skills that you need for existing jobs. I mean, for example, what I'm doing today, an online webinar, is not something I would have had to do prior to COVID, but I, like all of my colleagues, have had to learn how to do this and get new skills in technology and understanding how to present in a different format for the job that I already had. And as I said, there's greater competition for jobs and fewer advertised positions. So it's more important than ever to know what employers are looking for so that you can stand out in the market. So what are they looking for? Obviously, employers require specific qualifications for a job that you might be going for. They often require technical skills, so very specific skills and perhaps workplace experience, but that's not all they're looking for. They're looking for these three things as well. They're looking for education and training. So I'm talking not just about the specific qualification for your job, but any kind of education and training that you may have undertaken, because it demonstrates a willingness to learn and a willingness to continue learning. And that's something that employers value very, very highly. They're also looking for what we call employability skills. I'm doing, as I said, a separate workshop on this on Thursday, where we actually go through the top skills that employers are looking for. And we're talking about skills that would apply to any workplace. So communication, teamwork, problem solving, those sorts of things. And finally, workplace experience. Even if it's not in the kind of workplace that you're going for a job in, workplace experience is still highly valued by employers. So it's not only an opportunity to demonstrate your skills in an industry, but a chance to network with others and to show that you understand what's required in a workplace environment. So if we break these three areas down, education and training is one of the things that employers are looking for. And there's a range of different levels of qualification that you can look at if you're interested in studying. So the wheel on the right-hand side is the qualifications framework in Australia, and they're all of the certificate, diploma, and then university level qualifications that apply to different types of jobs. For the most part, Certificate 3 is the entry level requirement for most jobs that require a qualification. But below that, at Certificate 2 or even Certificate 1, are shorter qualifications you can do that might give you an edge in the market. So it might be a first aid certificate, or it might be a pre-apprenticeship. It might be that you're doing a course in responsible service of alcohol or something like that, which allows you to then apply for a particular job. So there's short courses you can do. There's what we call non-accredited training. So that's training that doesn't fit into this wheel on the right-hand side, short training. Might be a forklift license, something like that. Then there's certificate courses, traineeships, apprenticeships, and diplomas, which all take place at TAFE. And then when you get to level 7 on this wheel, then you're at university, where you're studying a bachelor degree, an undergraduate degree, or a postgraduate degree. So depending on what you've done in the past, what kind of job you want to go for, and where you want to head with your career, you can look at different levels of training or education that might suit your needs. The employability skills that employers are looking for, these top 8 employability skills correspond with the workshop I'll be running on Thursday, where we go through each of these employability skills to think about whether or not you've had them and how you might explain your experience with them. So for example, communication, which is obviously about speaking clearly and listening to other people, but it's also about communicating your needs, communicating with others in your team at work, those sorts of things. So we give a very structured workshop around understanding how well you achieve each of these skills and where and how you can improve on any of them. So it's just some food for thought now. Think about whether or not you have these skills. If you do, they should be included in your resume. And finally, workplace experience. So if you haven't had a job before, or you've been out of work for a while, then you can think about other ways to get workplace experience, or that you might already have workplace experience. So have you had a part-time, casual, or contract job? Have you undergone any work trials or even structured work experience with something you've been studying? Have you been involved with a sporting club, for example, involved in the committee of a sporting club, or any of those sorts of things? Volunteering is a very obvious example, and there are a lot of opportunities I'll go into separately. And any of your own business and online, at the moment, I guess, entrepreneurial experiences. All of those things can be included in your resume as workplace experience, even if you haven't had a job for a while. So we often deal with this question: which job is right for me? Because that's the big question, and that's something you're going to have to think about. And people are also thinking about where the jobs might be right now as well. When you want to decide which job is right for you, it's really important to do your research. So when thinking about your work and study options, it can be helpful to understand the jobs available now and in the future. So I'm going to go through that information. The skills that are required for jobs that interest you, and your own interests and how you like to work. So do you like to work outdoors? Do you like to work with a whole lot of other people? Do you prefer to work on your own? Do you like to work on computers, etc.? So let's talk about the jobs that are available. The top 5 growth industries at the moment are healthcare and social assistance, construction, education and training, professional, scientific and technical services, and surprisingly, accommodation and food services. That's because those areas are recovering. And whilst accommodation and food services look quite different, because we're talking about things like catering rather than necessarily working in a restaurant, there's still a lot of opportunities coming up. Let's talk about those. So when we look at the top jobs in the top industries, in healthcare and social assistance, there's a lot of work available for registered nurses, aged care workers, disability care workers, and those working in early childhood education. But I do want to make a point here that may be relevant to you. If you were interested in working in an industry that's growing, for example, healthcare, that doesn't necessarily mean that you need to be a healthcare worker, like a nurse or a doctor. In the healthcare sector, there's a whole range of different jobs that are on offer because the healthcare sector is growing and the industry needs workers all the time. So other than healthcare professionals, there's a whole range of different jobs that you could do in the office, so through administration, in IT, tradespeople, maintenance, groundskeepers, kitchen hands, even working more directly in the kitchen at hospitals, catering, meals on wheels, those sorts of things all fall into this sector. So have a think about whether or not what you want to do might fit into one of the growth industries as I go through them. In construction, the main jobs that are growing at the moment, the top jobs, if you like, are for builders, carpenters and joiners, electricians and plumbers. I would also perhaps bump civil construction workers up near the top as well, because there's a lot of work in civil construction, so roadworks and those sorts of things. And that includes construction labouring. So as an example, if you wanted to work in construction but you had no experience, all you really need to do is get what's called a white card, which is a one-day course, and you can then work as a labourer on a construction site. And if you wanted to get higher qualifications, you could actually study while you were already working. So just again, have a think about whether or not you might fit into this sector. Once again, there are other jobs in this sector, for example, administration, call centre work, etc., that's not listed here. In education and training, the main jobs that we list here as the top jobs are primary and secondary school teachers, education support workers. There's some work for university lecturers and TAFE teachers because there's been big changes in the tertiary sector. Private tutors is another example of work in the education and training sector. In professional, scientific and technical services, some specific jobs that are available here include things like software application programmers, advertising and marketing professional, graphic and web designers, scientists. I mean, imagine the work for lab technicians as well in pathology with all of the COVID testing, for example. And there's plenty of work also in the legal sector, which falls into this industry. And accommodation and food services. So there's still jobs going in this sector. Baristas, chefs, kitchen hands, housekeeping, cleaning. There's a lot of work in cleaning and sanitation, catering services and food delivery. These are some of the growing needs that exist in this industry. Since COVID-19, there's been a range of new jobs that have emerged as a specific result of the COVID-19 pandemic. So civil construction, the projects that the government has paid for have ramped up. So there's a lot of work in civil construction. As I said, cleaning and sanitation, there's a much higher need for work in that area. So there's a lot of jobs being advertised there. Catering, counselling, security, transport and logistics, call centre work, cyber security, food production and warehousing. So they're just some of the jobs that have actually been created as a result of COVID-19. So where should you look for work? There's a range of different ways you can seek work, and obviously what you do to seek a job will very much depend on the kind of job you're going for. So I'm talking very generally here, but I'm going to give you some advice, and that will help you to decide the best way for you. So there's what we call job seeking websites, and I've put some of the logos up here. In particular, Seek is probably the most popular place for looking for work at the moment. Now, most people are familiar with Seek. If you're not familiar with this website, then Google Seek and look through it to see what jobs exist for the kind of work you would like to do. So, for example, if you wanted to work in office administration, you would click on the Seek website, you would add the search office administration, and then you would look for jobs in that area. Looking at those job ads will help you to understand what different employers are looking for when it comes to employing people. You can also develop your own online profile through a site like Seek, which means that you can set it up to send you job alerts if anything comes in that you might want to apply for. And it's more important than ever to apply for things very quickly and by the due dates that they suggest, because as I said, it's very competitive. So along with Seek, there are some other online websites that are very popular. Indeed, Career One, Jura are 3 examples of that, as well as Ethical Jobs, which is an example of a very specific type of job seeking website where a lot of community service organisations would advertise their work. There's a lot of volunteering opportunities on Ethical Jobs as well. I also wanted to highlight a couple of government websites that are very important to know about. Working for Victoria was developed in response to COVID-19, and the Working for Victoria site is basically a matching service between those seeking employment and employers. So if I was looking for work, you would go on to the Working for Victoria website. You can register very easily and quickly. You can indicate 3 industries that you're interested in working in, and then you download an app called Sidekicker, and that alerts you to any jobs that are going at the moment. So for example, I have a dummy account with Working for Victoria where I'm pretending to be someone looking for warehousing work, construction work, and something else. I can't remember which other industry I put in, but I probably receive about 6 alerts a day regarding potential job opportunities that exist. Now, a lot of this work is contract, 6-month, 12-month contract, but employers are increasingly advertising their jobs on the Working for Victoria site. So if you are seeking a job, I suggest very strongly you look at Working for Victoria. Jobs Hub, which is indicated there, is basically the same thing, but on an Australia-wide or national level. So if you were thinking, when you can, of moving interstate or looking for work in another state, not Victoria, then you can register with Jobs Hub as well, and the same sort of process takes place. Another way people look for work is through recruitment agencies. Now, I have a few things to say about recruitment agencies, but the main thing I want to point out is a recruitment agent, if you aren't aware, it's their job to, once again, match employees, potential employees, to employers. So when an employer has a job, they may go to the recruitment agent and say, find me someone who can do this. Now, all I would suggest to you is that if you're going to go with a recruitment agent, that you choose very carefully and select a recruitment agent who's very specialised in the kind of work you want to do. So if it's childcare or if it's construction, there are different recruiters that are very specialised in that area. I'll say something more about recruitment agencies in a moment. And then the other way you can look for work online, I guess, is through employer websites. So large employers, so supermarkets, I've got a few examples here, Australia Post, Bunnings, etc. They usually employ people primarily through their own website. So if you'd really like to work at a large organisation, go to their website and check out their careers or work with us or jobs page and see if they've got their own registration process. That might be another way to add to all the other things that you're doing to seek work. Just a note on workplace experience. If you wanted to get some volunteer work, there's also sites you can go to specifically that can help you find volunteer jobs. So I've put some of them here, Go Volunteer, Volunteer West, or even Seek has its own volunteering page. If you're seeking work at the moment, but you can't seem to have any success, doing some volunteer work in the meantime is really good to add to your resume. So perhaps that's something else that you could do to check out what's available. And don't forget, when you're looking for work, to look at your personal networks. This is something a lot of people forget. About 80% of the jobs that exist at any one time are not advertised through any of those other means. They happen through what we call word of mouth. So by someone talking to someone else who says, oh, have you heard about the job going at this place or at my workplace, etc. So reach out to people, your family and friends, when you're speaking with them about any possible job opportunities. Reach out also to perhaps if you're doing a part-time job, you want to become full-time, you may have current work colleagues you can talk to, or even ex-colleagues that you used to work with, and keeping attached to those people via either social networks like Facebook or LinkedIn, or even face-to-face if you're still connecting with them. And then there's local connections as well. You may be aware of a new business that's opening in your area, or you may be a hairdresser who wants to work at the salon up the road. Then it might be worthwhile approaching those local connections yourself to see if there's any job opportunities available with them. Okay, so I'm almost done. What I'm going to show you now is basically how things have changed in terms of job searching. So employers were surveyed last year, and they were able to choose one or more methods by which they found their employees. So this is a list of the statistics of the ways that employers found the people that work for them. And it's very interesting. So 53% of employers said that they used what they're calling recruitment websites. That's what I'm calling job seeking websites. So things like Seek, Indeed, those sorts of things. But look at the word of mouth statistic. 31% of employers found their current employees by word of mouth, meaning someone said something to someone else and that's how the job was filled, not through a website, not through any other method. So it's still a very good and valid way, certainly in 2019, of finding work. Recruitment agencies or employment services, employers used those for 13% of the employees that they found. But I just want to point you to the very end statistic where it says approached by job seekers. So that's door knocking, that's going up the road and saying, have you got any work going? There's 12% of employers who found their employees that way. So if you compare that to the recruitment agency statistic, there's not a great deal of difference. And that's, I guess, the comment that I have to make about a recruitment agent. If you work in an industry that uses a lot of recruitment, you want to be a temporary office worker or a childcare worker or maybe aged care, some of those industries, recruitment agents can be very useful. But statistically, there's not a great deal of difference between them and direct approaching or door knocking. So that's just an interesting thing to remember. 14% of employers used social media, so jobs groups on Facebook, etc., to find their employees, and note that's even higher than a recruitment agency. And 8% used newspapers. So they're less used. Certainly in the metro area, we don't use newspapers very much for work. A lot of that still happens in the country and regional areas, but it's less common. Right now, things have changed somewhat as a result of COVID-19. So 70% of employers are using online jobs boards or job seeking websites, those sorts of things, to find their employees. 19% are found through social media, so that's an increase. Again, that's Facebook, LinkedIn, jobs groups, those sorts of things. And just note that 44%, so that's a significant increase, are still finding their employees through word of mouth. So when they need someone to work for them, they spread the word, and then people come forward to apply with them directly. Those word of mouth jobs are often not even advertised at all before they're filled. So that's something for you to remember when it comes to having important conversations with people that you know. So if you want any more information from us at the Skills and Jobs Centre, whether it's another workshop that you want to attend, whether it's one-on-one career advice or even information about study, please feel free to contact us directly. You can visit our website and you can note the website address there, where you can explore our resources and click on the button that says need assistance. Or if you wanted to email us directly, for example, you'd like us to look at your resume, or you had a specific question, or you'd already know you'd like to set up an appointment, you can email sjc@vu.edu.au and someone will get back to you to arrange an appointment.